So I was very curious to see what was going on here and why there are so many different story structures. Um, wasn't there supposed to be one universal, right? And maybe there is, but when I started to play back movies triple or quadruple the speed, let me show you what happened. So you play a movie like this, and then you just fast forward it a few times, like so, and all of a sudden you start seeing the scenes, the individual scenes. You start noticing them because when you take time away from the movie, you don't get to build up an emotional suction. Yeah, an emotional suction because you get sucked into the story and then you forget the construction. You don't see the construction. But when you fast forward like this, you do not get sucked in to the story. What you're just seeing is just, a bombardation of visuals in your eyeballs. That's it. You don't get to feel anything what you see. And then fast forward a movie like this, you started to see there is a build up, a build off, and then a build up again, like in the very end. It started to become a pattern that repeated itself with a lot of movies in particular genres. So, for instance, action movies and even other movies, the plot would be like this. So you have an introduction, sometimes even a drop in the character's development. So you have one character and you follow his development. So in the first part, either it's flatlined, nothing really happens, or there's a drop, like he was somebody very important and then he's fallen down. There's a situation going on. He gets a new chance to prove himself, or to a chance to defeat a bad guy, or a chance to stop a problem. And so, that's your first part. Then he starts rising up slowly, slowly, slowly. It gets better. He defeats more problems, jumps over more obstacles. And then there is a midpoint of your story where the good guy has climbed to the very top, apparently has some sort of a victory. And then eventually, after the midpoint, something happens. The bad guy falls down again, starts tumbling down like a process. It takes like 20 or 30 minutes. It's a very long sequence. So he tumbles down to the very bottom and he stays at the bottom. He wants to give up. He has cut himself, bruises everywhere. And he doesn't want to continue anymore, where he gets a second chance, a shift of perspective, a plot twist, if you may. He gets new motivation, he gets new information, it motivates him, and he gets new toys or something, or he gets a new possibility to use and to fight again. And then there's the fourth part where he climbs back up again, just like the second part where he climbs up to the midpoint of the movie, but now he climbs up to the end part of the movie where everything that he does needs to be better than the first time that he's climbed up. These things, this story structure, the arc, the story arc of your character is very visible when you speed up the movie 3 times or 4 times the speed. It's very visible. And so what I wanted to show you guys here with Ice Age, a very nice, cute, small movie, just over an hour in length. For a visual purpose, I just cut the beginning part loose from the main story. And I just started to just scroll like this through the entire movie and just try to find the cuts. So if you watch with me, the very first sequence is where Manny meets Sid. All right, and then there's a cut here, right? Where they have fallen on their asses, and now they have to stand up, dust themselves off, and they find out they have a common interest, or Sid finds out he has a common interest, the migration. They need to move to the south or something, but Manny chooses to go to the north. Sid doesn't know why. He wants to tag along. Then there's another cut right there, the start of a new sequence where we meet Diego and his adversary friends. They start off as the bad guys in this part of the movie, and there's a cut here where we go back to our main characters, and then there will be a cut here and there. Just watch it, and you'll see the cuts unfold themselves, and you will see all the interesting cuts that are made in a story. All right, so this scene is where Diego and his friends try to catch the baby, but the woman is too smart. She runs away. She sacrifices herself to save the baby. And then here you will find the cut where this sequence ends. And then a new sequence starts, right? So I call this first part the setup, the introduction of the problem, because you need to first introduce your main characters. You always start with the main character, so that's so in the very first shot, that's the foot of Manny. You start with the good guy. You don't have to start with the good guy. Just like the opening credits of the movie, you start with a side character, someone that is like a joke, returning throughout the movie. If you guys didn't know about this Scratch character, Scratch was, I think they made a pilot or a small trailer or something for this movie, but they made it with just this character to try to sell the idea, to pitch the idea, and get funded. So after approval, they decided to keep Scratch in the movie as like a side story, because the producers like this guy so much. So we start with the introduction of our main characters. First, it was Manny, and what we see here is that Manny is going the wrong direction. Everybody is going against the crowd. And so his problem is that he wants to move to the north while all the other mammals are migrating to the south, and he's walking against the current. He's creating problems along his way. Then there's Sid. We get his introduction, and basically he's an idiot because he's an idiot because the way everything unfolds. Like he falls from the tree, he stands in a piece of shit, and then he gets in trouble with these big guys because he's such an idiot. He doesn't even witness danger around him, even when it stares him right in front of his face. Then we scroll along. We get these guys meeting up. Manny and Sid meet up. And because of a life-threatening event, they end up stuck together. Yeah. So that's the way the story resolves why these two guys came about. So then we skip to the bad guy. The bad guy needs an introduction as well. So as we see, we cut to this beautiful little village, a few people, and then of course we see the paws and then the faces of the bad guys that are luring over them, and they want the baby. So we see here the problem that the bigger the leader of the pack has this issue with the follower, the next in line to the leadership position, but Diego, I'm sorry, still needs to prove himself of a good hunter, a good gatherer. So he gets the not permission, but like a challenge to get the baby from the humans. And once he has gotten the baby from the humans as food for the pack, he has proven himself worthy as as a good second uh, accomplice leader. Every leader needs his right hand. So, so that's how the story solves that problem. So that's why Diego has this underlying need to get the baby, because his career is on the line. His approval of the pack is on the line. It's very important for him to be accepted somewhere. And again, we cut back to these guys. They are still trying to get along with each other, which creates very funny scenes. But the most important part here in this first sequence is the storyline of Diego, where Diego tries to get the baby, tries to prove himself worthy, but the mother here is too smart and then jumps into the river with the baby. And now we see here Diego gets in trouble with the leader, but he does get a second chance to prove himself worthy again. He needs to still find the baby, and he has like a few days. They give him a few days to prove himself worthy, or else he'll be used as the food for the pack. So here you see the introduction of the problem. The problem is really about Sid. Sid has the bigger problem. Diego has this bigger problem to get the baby. It's a very important motivation for this story. And so the baby and this lion are very important to the story. Sid and Manny, however, bump into Diego by accident in the second sequence of the movie, or second act of the movie. First, they meet the baby. Something comes on their path, which is the baby. And after the baby, Sid tries to bring the baby back home. And then, while trying to do so, they meet Diego, right? Diego jumps along, and then he tells a lie about himself, what his motivations are. But in the end, Manny doesn't trust him, and he and Sid walk off together with the baby, and Diego is left behind, not getting his reward as easily as he thought he would. So the first plan of these main characters was to get the baby back to the village. So we see here Sid trying, his best, his first plan to get the baby back to the villagers. And we will see that there are 5 plans in the entire movie that they try to get the baby to the villagers. The first plan is very obvious here. Sid tries to climb a mountain. Okay, so that didn't work out well. They met Diego. Second part here is where they get on top of on the mountain, but then see the village has been destroyed. And so they make a new plan, which is to track the humans, to track them down, find them, and deliver the baby. That is what they're doing in this sequence here. They're having a discussion, who is going to be the leader, who has the best knowledge to track the humans down. Manny doesn't trust the tiger, so he gives the baby to Sid. So Sid can make the decision what to do. Anyway, so that's the basic introduction of the movie. What we also see is that we already hear. So this entire thing here is the first act from an original 3-act sequence. We end where the real story starts, and the real story is a road trip adventure where they have to catch up on some people. So the premises of the movie, how the movie is sold, is a bunch of misfits need to travel a great distance in an ice age era because they found a baby and they a lost baby and they need to return it to their humans. And along the way, they stumble upon obstacles, blockades, and some bad wolves. But in the end, they get through it and they become a family. Uh, so the premise is they have to do this road trip. So the road trip premise of the movie starts here, after this point, after this marker that I mark here. After this point, this whole part, this whole middle part, which is called the traditional Act 2, is about them doing this road trip and coming across all sorts of different trouble. Okay. And then we have the end of that second sequence where they have reached like an end point to their road trip. And then there's a third sequence, the traditional third sequence, which is where they have to push the final part and return the baby. Yeah. There we go. So, yeah, you can break a movie down in very simple parts like this. And this is also the way you need to break down your own stories. They need to have a 3-act structure as a very basis. They also need to have a 2-act structure because here, right here on the timeline, is the midpoint of the movie. Right here is your midpoint of the movie. So you have one half until here, and then you have a second half until there. So there's a visual rise and a visual fall. Sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes it's downwards, and then it goes upwards like so. But you always have a midpoint in every movie, which defines a very different change, a very different tone. So it started off with like 2 halves of a story. Then you get 3 halves of a story. You get these first one, second one, and here the third one, right? And then you can break it down into even more, because what I've seen here are 5 different sequences that are very distinctive and are very similar to themselves. Some would argue that the 5th and the 4th one are one. That's what I thought. So that you have this one, this sequence, which is the first one, the second one sequence, or they call it 2A, and this one they call 2B, and then this one they call 3. So still 3 acts, but then the middle act is twice as long. That's what they also do. But I found that this movie has this 3-act structure here, which I placed with these markers. It has a 3-act structure, and underneath that, or on top of that structure, as a second layer, it has a 5-sequence structure. And I believe the reason why they have this 2 layers on top of each other is because of commercials. So in America, but also the rest of the world, we have, so in Holland, we have this rule, or like a code, a television code, that every 15 or every 20 minutes of a movie, there needs to be a break for commercials. And commercials can last from 5 to 10 minutes. So for very small movies, the commercial break is every 15 minutes. If we deconstruct this movie, if we start here on the zero timeline, and then we go 15 minutes ahead of time, well, I just cut off here 2 minutes. So here should be somewhere the first commercial, which is at the 19-point mark, which fits very well within the 20 minutes parts per sequence. So we will have here a commercial break, and we go into Act 2, this whole yellow act. And then in at 40, or here, there's a 36, like we are 5 minutes short, we go in a commercial break as well. So the second arc is where they have gone halfway across their journey, and then we see the bad guys, and the bad guys promise that there's more to the story than we already know. They're just reminding us that this problem with the bad guys hasn't resolved yet, and it sets up the second half of the movie. So after the commercial break, we come back to the third sequence, which is where they will stumble upon even more trouble. Things will escalate a lot more. And right here about 53, which is also 5 minutes or even more short. I think if we start here, 36 till 53, that's almost 20 minutes. Like this is 18 minutes long. There's also a commercial break there. And then there's a commercial break here, right there. So we have 1 commercial break, 2 commercial breaks, 3 commercial breaks, 4 commercial breaks. That's it. 4 big commercial breaks, and then we have the ending. So in the ending, there could also be a commercial. So we have 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 commercials in this movie, and 3 acts, but 5 different sequences because of the need for commercials. So let's talk about the 5 problems of the hero. We saw that the hero starts here with his first problem, to solve the problem, to return the baby to the villagers. Then a little bit further away, his problem fails, of course. He needs a new plan. So plan number 2 is they need to combine themselves as a team and then return the baby the right way. Then they attempt this thing. They go into a problem here, or whatever you want to call it, but they get out of it alive. And now here, this scene is where they reap their reward. They have finally eaten melon, and of course the bad guys are on their tail. Then the second half of this movie continues. Their third plan is to keep going. Let's see. I had this figured out. To keep going, but then what happens is they tumble upon this cave, and their third problem collapses. Their third plan to go through this cave collapses. And they have no way out unless by moving forward through the entire cave. So their problem here becomes to get out of the cave, which is a very interesting scene, which I liked very much in this movie. Always after the third problem, the hero has tumbled down because he has not yet won or succeeded or accomplished his goal, and 3 times he has failed to accomplish the goal. As we see in this movie, this is the cave is the 3rd time that the main character failed. And so the main character gets here into this very low point of his existence. The end of the cave, he sees a drawing, a mural, a caveman's drawing of his past, or that's what he believes. He can see his own past in these pictures. And we get this very emotional scene where Manny is being remembered who he is, where he came from. And this scene is very important. I mean, these kind of moments and stories are very important to flush out the energy build up from the previous part of the story, to flush it out, to make a restart, a reboot of the story, and to get new motivations into the character. Uh, because the main character is not able to solve his problems the way he is, because he wants to cheat, or he wants to do it quickly, as soon as possible, with less effort as possible. And that's why he has failed up until this point, in the time. He has failed 3 times to accomplish his goal. He goes through this reboot kind of sequence where he has to lose everything, he has to let go, give it up, and find peace with himself, find a reflection with himself, who he is and why he really wants to accomplish this goal. He needs to find a new motivation. And so now he sees this mural, this drawing on the walls, reminding him who he is, that he is a victim. He was a victim of something bad happening to him. And that's why he wants to return the baby now, because he was left alone when he was a baby. His parents got killed. And now he has this baby in his custody, and he doesn't want the same thing to happen to the baby, right? So now he gets the baby with his trunk and places the baby back on his back. And he sees the new motivation now. He sees why he has to do this. And that's the reboot of every story, of every hero. You need a reboot of your motivations, of your reasons, why you do the things that you do. You need new reason. So you go back to basic. You go back to basic and then you reboot the story. And then the final part of the story is the final 2 plans. Okay. So now with new motivation, they go ahead, they escape this cave, but they find themselves in a 4th problem. Okay, the 4th problem, which is not something they had in their control because it's a disaster from nature, which is this river of lava. And this river of lava, they need to survive it. And by surviving this river of lava, the important part of this scene, the reason why this is so important in every story, is because these guys finally learn to trust each other, because they help each other in the face of death. They need to stick together, they need to help each other, and they finally learn by doing that they are better off as friends instead of enemies. And the reason why this scene is important is because later on in the movie, you will need each other as a friends, as a family, as people that trust each other, in order to defeat the main problem, which is set up in the very first part of the movie. Because you cannot deal and resolve the problem at the end of the movie by being who you were in the beginning of the movie. You were selfish, you were trying to cheat your way out of it. You didn't want to invest that much in any kind of a problem. You were just egocentric, focusing on your own self, your own problems. You want to go to the north, not to the south. But then you meet this baby, and this baby has given you a reboot in your own philosophy. And now you start thinking from internally egocentric to outwards to someone else. So after that part of the movie, the story, Manny wants to do it for the baby, not for himself, but for the baby. And he needs friendship. He needs friends, family, help to complete that phase. So when we go into the movie, into the 2nd chapter, into the 5th problem. The 5th problem here is immediately introduced, because this is the final problem where Manny has to defeat the biggest problem ever, the fifth problem. So the fourth and the fifth problem are one of the biggest problems you can have. They could be one and the same problem, but then split into two parts, like Rocky or a boxing movie where he fights in the fourth part, he fights the bad guy, but then the bad guy gets away by luck and then leaves the problem unsolved until the fifth part where he continues the fight with the bad guy. Or it could be two separate things, like here in this movie there's a lava part and there's the, you know, the tiger parts. So anyway, so these guys have escaped the lava river, and now they are reaping their they're reaping their reward. They're happy that they're alive. So there's always like this three parts. There's the setup part, there's the execution part, and there's the resolvement part. So as you can see here, there's a setup part where Manny, Sid, and Diego have escaped the thing, but the setup is, look, there's something wrong with the bottom, and then you have the result. Then you have the execution of this of this problem that you have set up, which is here they have to save their asses, and then the third part of this little story arc is where they are happy that they're alive. Okay, so there's always kind of a story comes in three, they say, like beginning, a middle, and an end. And then you can stretch the middle part, or you can stretch other parts, but there are always three distinctive parts. Just like here, they escaped. Manny and Diego escaped the cave. Then they are introduced to this problem here, the river, and that they have to save each other. And then they, you know, have their reward that they are safe, and they have a campfire to celebrate that they are safe. You know. Then we go further ahead in the movie into the final problem, into the final plan or problem of this story, which is that they're almost there. They almost found the humans, but danger, the final danger is yet to come. And then Diego here changes himself. Diego changes himself from a bad guy to a good guy because Diego has witnessed the true character of the main hero. Let's see if we can get a moment here. I think it's right about here where I'm just going backwards. Here. There. This is the part where Diego finally sees the real Manny, not just a mammoth, but a real human being, a real character. And that's why in this part here,
there's an ambush.
There, he says,
"Get down! What? Get down and follow me."
Here he breaks character and he becomes someone better.
What's going on?
So he tells them about the bad guys, and then this is the fifth and final problem where, you know, the bad guys jump on them, and then Sid and Manny and Diego have to save each other. But not only that, so this part is where they save each other. And then the second part of this sequence is where they actually have to fight off the problem. They cannot run away from the problem anymore. And the reason why they can fight the problem is because of Diego, because he has turned himself around because of the right motivations, because we already seen this in the end of the third problem, where there's the cave moment where Manny sees this cave drawings. It's an emotional moment where the hero has his lowest point. And Diego has witnessed that. And that's why Diego now has been set up to now, in the end of the story, to finally turn. And now he does turn, and he helps out Manny and Sid to defend themselves. And by doing so, he sacrifices himself so that the group can succeed. And this is a very important thing, because a group identity sometimes is more important than the individual identity. The group sometimes is more important than the individual. And Sid understands this. Sid understands that the baby needs to be delivered to the parents. The baby cannot be eaten. Manny, the mammoth, cannot be eaten as well. So this goal, if you may, which is higher than your own individual goals, becomes more important. And so that's when people start making a sacrifice, because they finally have become to believe in a bigger, higher form of a goal, which is much, much better than an individual, lower form of a goal. So returning that baby and saving themselves as a family is more important than your own individual goals. And in all the stories, you see this philosophy at the very end of the story. You see the philosophy come into blossom. And the storyteller tells the story of a philosophy that the group, or the group identity, or the group mission is more important than the individual mission. And Diego, I'm always starting by Sid. Diego is sacrificing himself here in a fight. He knows he cannot win unless he sacrifices his life. And see, this is where he gets knocked out. But karma has it that helps a little hand every now and then. Let me scroll to it. This is karma, and karma helps a little. There we go. And the bad guy is defeated. There is a small introduction of this karma back in the cave, where Sid and Manny tumble into the cave. Let me fast forward it here. Then, these eyes. There we go. So they get into the cave. And then this is the first part where this karma thing is being introduced. But, karma doesn't kill them. Karma chooses the side of Manny and Diego. There we go. So every time, so this is like a God kind of philosophy. Every time people do something right in life, karma helps them a little. So if you want to know when to put karma in your own stories, do it like this. At the very end of the movie, where the main characters finally have changed into a better version of themselves and still trying to do the right thing, despite the fact that they get defeated temporarily, then karma helps a little. And there's always like this in winning, in success, the right kind of success of life, where you, like if you're an athlete, the right kind of success is where you have a good preparation. I'm just going to simplify it. A good preparation, you have some talent, of course, which is a good start. You have your preparation, you have your motivation, why you need to do what you're doing, and then you have the hard work. You have to give everything of yourself. And then the very last part of that athletic journey is where you get this little karmic boost or karmic gift to win. And when you get this these things in these sequence orders. You know, you have your talent, or no talent, or you have some skill, and then you develop that skill, and then you use that skill into an athletic journey, and then you put a lot of hard work with the right reasons, the right, not individual reasons, but like reasons for a higher purpose, like a higher goal. When you have set higher purposes for yourself and then you do the hard work, karma will give that little boost, little help at the very end for you to be like 1 millisecond better than your other guy, right? Something like that. Or the other guy will like uh, have their feet trip a little bit like this, so they lose a half a millisecond and then you win. Winning the right way is never an individual thing. And that's what movies and stories are actually about. Manny will never be able to return the baby by himself. Sid, the idiot that Sid is never even capable of understanding the complexity of life to return the baby by himself. Diego, the tiger, he is too self-orientated the entire time of the movie to be able to return the baby. It's when they team up as a group, as a family, and they start um, changing their motivations from internally motivated to externally motivated. There should be a better word, because internal, external is not quite well. It's like self-orientated and others orientated. I think it should be called like this. In every story, even in the Bible, stories tell you this philosophy that you need to change your motivations within the journey or the task or the goal that you want to accomplish in order to win the right way, right? And to win the right way is when karma or God, helps in a little and gives you this small advantage, like with these little, things that fall on top of the bad guy. They did not fall on the good guys; they fell on the bad guys, right? So there's a little divinity going on there, God's work, if you may. So the bad guys get defeated. The fifth plan is done. Then we have the aftermath. We see the price that it took to defeat the bad guys. And that's Diego here lying almost defeated, almost dead. This is the second emotional part of the movie, the very end, where they need to reflect on what has been the price, what has been the cost. Was it worth it? And some would argue that this is the sixth obstacle that they need to overcome, that they need to look at the price. What did it cost to defeat all the problems? And is it still worth it to continue? Which is a very huge, mind-blowing philosophical question. Should you still continue? Should you leave Diego back? And the answer should be yes. Because to return the baby, the life of the baby is much more important than the lives of the group. And that's what real heroism is all about. And only heroes are able to make this choice. And that's why stories have heroes. Because heroes make this sacrificing choice. Sacrifice the individual to help someone else. Like rescue movies have the same thing, where in Cliffhanger, they need to he needs to continue. No, not Cliffhanger, is a bad one. The other one, Vertical Limit, where there's a group of people going up the Himalaya to save Annie and two other climbers. Right, a team of 3 people have been trapped in this cave of ice. And then the brother of Annie, he needs to assemble his own team, and then they need to go up with a helicopter and then still need to go up to find Annie. But along the way, the team of of the guy, the brother, and the team of the girl, they start dying, okay, one by one. And at the very end of that movie as well, the good guy stares at the price, what it took to get there to the sister. And his journey is completed. He went there to the sister. That's the first part of his journey. But now the second part is to get the sister into the chopper, get her outside of the cave. But the price has been enormous. He had to lose a lot of his friends, a lot of his team members. And then he's staring at the choice. He's looking at the cost. He knows that he can die. He knows that the rest of his team can die. Will he make the sacrificing choice to save the greater good, which is Annie, right? Which is Annie. And if you don't have this internal motivation scene at the end of the third problem, where the good guy does not reflect who he is, why he's doing the things that he's doing, he will not be able to make the sacrificing choice at the very end. And so that's how you need these setups, one after the other. So to continue this movie and come to the final stage of this movie, we see here Manny looking over Diego. And they're having a moment where Diego says, you know what, it's been a great journey, but you gotta move on. You gotta leave me behind. And you can see how difficult it is for Manny to leave Diego behind, to leave a family member behind and continue. But he has to do it because he is the hero. He has chosen to be the hero by a divine force. See, this is the very important shot of this conclusion of the theory. Manny has been chosen by a higher power, a divine power, to be a hero. It's not his own free will. He feels that he needs to do it. He has been chosen one, but he needs to choose to stand inside of that role a little bit longer. I don't know if you can wrap your head around this theory, but heroes are not by self-choice. Heroes are heroes only when a divine power, say God, wants you to be the hero and plans out obstacles and methods for you to overcome them. So every time there is a problem or a situation like this baby gets into a problem in his life, and a hero has been chosen by life to merge with that baby, to merge with the problem, and resolve that problem. And the only way to resolve the problem is when the hero steps into the role of the hero, when he acknowledges the fact that he cannot be himself anymore. The first three parts, the first three problems, the first three plans have failed because he wanted to be himself. He wanted to do things for his own selfish reasons. He needs to understand that he has been chosen by a higher power to merge with the problem, to merge with the baby, change himself, change his own self-identity, change his own priorities, his own philosophies in order to become, like to put on the suit, the hero suit, to put on the responsibility because someone else has demanded that of him. We can argue about this God thing and divinity, but in a way, if you want to make sense of your stories, your protagonist, your hero, he starts as a protagonist, but your protagonist needs to become the hero at the end. He needs to change. There needs to be an internal change where he gives up his self and he takes on this suit of the hero. And the hero does what heroes do, which is they put other lives first and their own lives second. So you need to construct the right motives so that your main protagonist can make this turn. You need to set up the right things, and you need to give the protagonist 3 obstacles to try and to fail. Then he will get into this low point after failing 3 times, and then he will start reflecting why he needs to do the things that he's doing. He needs to get a second chance to get out of the pit, and then continue into the 4th and the 5th problem. So right now they have overcome the 5th problem, and Manny has decided to put on the coat of the hero and continue despite of the price, despite of the cost. And now we enter the final sequence. Where we see that Manny, with the cloak of the hero, with the suit of the hero, is finally able to, find a human. There's a little problem there. You don't want to make things too obvious. There's always going to be some sort of a conflict in everything that you do to make a story interesting and to keep it interesting. And now we feel the burden of the hero cloak. Because we've been through this entire journey with Manny, we know the things that he's gone through. We know that the inner self conflict that he had, and he still kept going on because of the baby, because of something greater than himself, because he saw that, because he was meant to save that baby. But he had the free will, he had the choice to save the baby or not. The fact that you're meant to save the baby doesn't mean you will save the baby. You need to put on the hero cloak. And only then he gets to find the parents, the family of the baby. Anyway, so yeah, this is where I want to leave you guys, because after that there's just aftermath, and you can choose whatever you want to do with the story after this point. But this is the end of the movie. This is the end of the story, the end of the hero transformation. I hope you guys, this is a lot of information, I know, but I hope you guys will do the same with your own preference choice of films. Just put them in a timeline, press play, and then go fast forward 3 to 4 times, and then find the cuts. Find the cuts of your movie, color code them for you to have a overview. Find out the story arc of your hero. Is it an upwards one to the midpoint, or is it a downwards one to the midpoint? There are different kinds. For different genres, there are different kinds, and I will get into that in other streamings. But yeah, to compress the movie, a 1-hour movie, in 20 minutes and watch it at a high-speed playback is the only way to see the scenes, to see the construct. So, you can buy books online and they will confuse you. This theory, that theory. But the best way is to just dive in yourself and do it yourself and see it for yourself. Just like I did, just like all these theories that I presented to you are only because I just kept looking at other movies and trying to figure out their complexity into something simple. Because if we are able to deconstruct something as engineers, how are we going to engineer our own stories? That's it. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching this, and I hope you guys come back to see the other parts of other movies that I'm going to deconstruct. So, thank you for watching.